Hello and welcome to the show today. I'm really glad you could join us. So today we're talking about how to build competition-proof empires. Pretty good time to do this as we get into COVID. I'd say hopefully through COVID, but nobody knows. But anyways, I was just talking with our guest before we got started. We're talking about how cool it was to see so many entrepreneurs pivot while a lot of others didn't, and the new opportunities that are being opened to you if you're doing the right things. Are you? That's what we're going to talk about today. So with us today is Mike Koenigs. Now, Mike is known for being a media master who knows how to help his international clients get attention, create premium brands, and elevate status in just days. Serial entrepreneur, angel investor, judge on entrepreneur.com's elevator pitch TV show, 13-time best-selling author, co-host of the Capability Amplifier podcast with strategic coach founder Dan Sullivan, and The Big Leap with Business Sage and New York Times best-selling author Gary Hendricks. Now, Mike has had 4 business exits, 2 to publicly traded companies, his first digital cafe, one of the first digital marketing agencies in the world, sold to IPG, the Interpublic Group, and his 2 SaaS companies, Traffic Geyser and Instant Customer, were sold to publicly traded companies as well. Now, his most recent was You Everywhere Now to a private buyer. So he's got a lot of experience in entrepreneurship. Mike, thanks for joining us today.
Good to be here, my friend. Really excited.
Well, a lot of stuff's happening, and I enjoyed talking with you before we got started about, hey, how are businesses doing? And I like your answer. Like, the people in my network are crushing it right now. They're traveling less and making more. And a lot of that is because they've done very good building their tribe, building their brand. So, through all of this, what have you seen? I mean, how really important is it to focus on your branding?
I think it's single-handedly. I always say this one thing, which is we are one story, one connection away from financial freedom. I really do believe that's the case. And what I have found more than ever is there's more noise now than ever before. We passed through this election cycle, complete insanity, complete noise, disinformation, lack of trust. So if you think about it, the way you get from A to B is, first of all, you've got to get attention. So when I ask people all the time, I say, so what business do you think you're in? And someone will say, well, I'm in the credit business. I'm a chiropractor. I'm a doctor. I'm a whatever. And I go, no. First and foremost, you're in the attention getting business. If you don't get attention, you won't be able to get paid for doing what you do. And then you got to be in the influence business. And then you got to be in the trust business. And then finally, when you get to share your story about what you're going to actually provide and what value you provide, then maybe you might be rewarded and have a deal or do some business. So with that in mind, I think all hands on deck, you got to be building content and messaging and stories and know where your ideal audience is, what channel to reach them in, and find an effective way to get their attention, engage them, and then get them to the point where they finally raise their hand and say, you know what, Ty, I've been looking for someone just like you. How do we start working together?
You refer to something called category of one brand. What is it? Tell me a little bit more.
All right. So a category of one brand in my world means you are the only person perceived to do what you do. So that has to do with positioning and packaging and branding. So I'm going to give you a couple examples. One is a guy that I've been working with for about a year now, close to a year. I met him in Fiji. His name's Justin Donald. I talked to him, we got to know each other, and I'm like, so what do you do? We went through that whole thing. And he goes, well, I'm a cash flow investor. I'm like, well, what does that mean? And he said, well, I don't have a job and my wife doesn't work. We invest, generate enough passive income that we don't need to have jobs. And then I build additional equity on top of that. And I asked him enough questions to find out, like, so what exactly, how did he do? What kind of investments did he make? I went down the rabbit hole and I'm like, do you have a book? No. Do you have a website? No. Do you have a social platform? No. I go, well, you just happen to meet the right guy at the right time. I've helped 1,800 people write books, become bestsellers, build platforms, create audiences, and monetize them. And he goes, let's start working together, right? So if you fast forward a little bit, we start meeting, and he's a guy who's unconsciously competent at what he does, but he didn't have a system or a process. So we systemized it, and ultimately we crafted a category of one brand and trademarked it, which is lifestyle investor and lifestyle investing. As obvious as that sounds, No one owned it. So we bought the domains, we trademarked it, wrote a book called The Lifestyle Investor. It's 10 commandments to generate passive income and financial freedom. And then the book just got released, and he's got a multitude of different programs he sells. So his high-end one is a $250,000 a year one-on-one coaching, where he'll show you and introduce you to deals and show you how to negotiate and generate the terms that he does and the returns he does. The next level is he's got a $50,000 a year mastermind, where groups get together, you get exposed to deals and opportunities, all the way down to digital product, and then finally the book, and then there's a free podcast. But a category of one in my mind is you become the go-to person and you own an idea or a word or a phrase or a name inside an audience. And you become the only person they think of or go to in order to solve a given challenge. So that takes a lot of work. If you think about Tim Ferriss, 4-Hour Workweek, he designed a category in the book world, which is lifestyle design. It's now a category. Prior to him, no one had it. He built it, he created it, he owned it, and now he became a category of one. If you think about it, he's built a multi-million dollar empire and tens of millions, if not $100 million net worth as a result of starting and thinking differently. So we can go on down and deconstruct all sorts of brands, but that's what I would say. And that's why you have one word musical acts like Beyonce, Kanye, Sting, The Police. The best Shep Gordon, one of the greatest publicists and also brand makers in the music industry, realized you got to be a word if you're going to be a player. It's Michael. Okay. Michael Jackson's Michael. There's no other Michael when you get down to it.
Yeah. Prince even went to a symbol.
Totally.
One step further.
Yeah. Yeah. Got out of a bad contract with Sony, who wouldn't let him be creative. They took away his purpose, his meaning, and his reason to live, which is to produce content. And his stuff was outselling, but that's another story altogether. I don't know if that's a category of one problem. It was a specific Prince problem.
That's a contractual problem. We got a whole other discussion.
Sure is, man. Just let me create.
So how do you do this? I mean, can you do it? Because you gave a great example of somebody that kind of had a rare niche that I think most people haven't heard of before. But can you do that within an already existing category, such as real estate investors, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that that's what they do. Can you create a category one brand within an already existing industry like that?
Yes. So I'll give you what I call moldy white toast example. So this is the most boring business in the world. Financial advisors. Okay. Financial advisors are just one step removed from an MLM market or a multi-level marketing, where you've got a product that in itself isn't unique. It's not interesting. No one goes, yay, a financial advisor wants to talk to me and sell me insurance or some sort of financial instrument. It's just by itself, it's not interesting or boring. And the way a great financial advisor builds a book of business is by becoming a great networker, a great problem solver. He gets intros, et cetera, et cetera. But how do you differentiate yourself? So I'll give you a real life example. We're working with a guy. I'll just use his first name and last initial just because I don't have his direct permission to do this, but his name's Ken. His last name starts with a T. He is an expert in something called premium finance or premium financing, which basically means he'll go in with someone and sell a very, very large insurance policy using a variety of financial instruments, but the insurance policy generates money, but it's actually paid for by a bank. So there's a way to generate a lot of net worth, a huge payout upon death, but also it generates cash and income, and the bank will finance it and pay for it. And it's through a very clever strategy. And the net is, for the individual, you can create a legacy that you can build assets worth tens or hundreds of millions of dollars that go to a cause. For the individual, they've got a huge insurance policy plus a mechanism for generating income and revenue. The banks can finance big deals, but to the originating company that's selling the policy, they're selling policies that are 20 to 50 times larger than the standard one because of the way this thing's set up. Well, that in itself is a fairly complex thing, but there's a better way to pitch it. And when I listened to this, I dug deep. And the way we go about it is I'll meet with someone, I'll say, tell me what your secret sauce is and what you do that's unique or special or different. Tell me everything about your audience that you want to work with. I always say, who do you want to be a hero to? And if you got to look at your business and say, look at the 100 people you might be doing business with. There's the 80-20 Pareto principle, which is the top 20% is what you want to focus on. I believe in focusing on the top 2% or the 0.2%. So we craft an offer that's 2 to 10 times bigger than anything you've ever done for a very specific audience using your secret special message. Okay. What is it that makes you super unique? We package that. And then we position you and we give it a unique word, a name, a phrase, and some kind of a benefit. So I've gotten to the point now after doing business for 30 years, I'm pretty darn good at this. And I can basically do all that in about 2 to 3 days with someone. So the bottom line is we pick an audience, we craft an offer, we craft and create a story, and then we figure out what are all the channels that you need to find or reach that perfect individual, the perfect customer with the right story. And again, we're all one story, one connection away from having as much business as we need for the rest of our professional careers. And you can build a brand that can have value and you can sell it someday. So in the case of Ken, not only did he have a special, unique skill and a template for doing what he did, we've got a mechanism now for generating him new business, but we're also creating a certification program to teach this. We're wrapping it up and packaging the intellectual property, which can be licensed to carriers. And then there's an opportunity to create software products that help make this happen, which also is IP and saleable. So we basically created 4 to 5 businesses in one, with huge potential opportunities that could be worth for sure tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. Technically, it can be billions of dollars because this particular system can be applied in a lot of different industries. So I know I went way over, did a lot of long-handed mouth moving there, but it's like every business, any individual can suddenly become super interesting and fascinating when you start building these stories and these brands around them.
So is that really the key to getting kind of the highest value premium pricing or offer, is to do just that, to kind of make yourself that category of one brand?
Yeah. So no one cares about toilet paper or Kleenex or gas, right? You got to have a story. It's sort of like if you take, and like one of the easiest ways a brand can grow is by paying a celebrity for an endorsement and commercials and genuinely show that individual improving their lifestyle by using that product, and then they plaster it all over the place. It's like, why does Tom Cruise get paid so much for a movie? It's because he's a known entity, and the media will give you a ton of free press because Tom Cruise is in it. He can get as many interviews as he wants, as much press as he wants for free. Okay. It's money in the bank. Well, if you don't have a bunch of money, or you have something that can be perceived to be boring, you're not going to get some rap star, some artist to talk about it. It's just not going to happen. So you got to find a way to craft that story. And the more specific it is, the better. And so a lot of people, if they come to me, here's what I'll give you a guaranteed failure thing. If someone comes to me and I'll say, hey, who's your audience? And if they say everyone, my first answer is, you're going to fail. Guaranteed. Everyone's friend is no one's friend. And and you can't own or dominate anything. You got to go in like a laser, own a small audience, build momentum, prove your model, and then start owning groups, and then influencers, and then ambassadors. But you've got to think from a small perspective first. It's like own a small area and then grow out. And that precision is what gives you permission to access other places. So, you know, you want to be the best at just one thing at first. There's always opportunity to go out beyond that, but you got to prove yourself to the world first. And just because you did it before doesn't mean anything. A good example is that Quibi, that platform where they did, they had, I can't remember how much money they raised, a ton of money. And it was that vertical format new channel online by, I think it was the woman who was one of the big eBay founders, or was it the HP? I can't even remember the people involved. I can look it up while we're sitting here. Bottom line is they failed horribly because there was nothing special about what they did. And even their past results, multi-billion-dollar corps that they did well with, didn't mean anything. They just had a horrible story and nothing that differentiated them. There was nothing special.
You talk a lot about category one brands, but it's interesting because you also talk about competition, and it seems like you really teach that it's good to have competition. So do you think it's important for a company to actually have competitors?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, if someone comes to me and they say, hey, Mike, you know, here's the second failure point. If the first failure point is who's your audience, it's like everyone. I'm like, yeah, right. And then the next one will be, and there's no competition. That's guaranteed. Well, that means there's no money out there because there's nothing about most of this that's uniquely smart or intelligent or have such a genius idea that we come up with a category killer, totally unique something or other. Like everything is a derivative of something else. So the first thing you want to do is find ideally an industry that has a whole bunch of big, slow, dumb, old companies in it who are fighting amongst themselves. Because if you know that it's a huge market with a ton of money and a lot of competition, then there's an opportunity for a niche and for a premium brand. So the race to the bottom is the third biggest mistake. If someone says, yep, and we're going to do it so much cheaper, I'm like, that sounds like a crappy business to me. Okay. So it's like, you want to be the most expensive. And the only thing that differentiates you, it's like the old example of a car. You got a Rolls Royce and you got to pick the cheapest car out there. Okay. Little 3-cylinder, whatever. Hyundai something or other. And even Hyundai's got a more premium brands right now, but like there's little tiny credit cars that you get for under 20 grand. So they're both modes of transportation. You can both go somewhere and get somewhere, but it's the story, it's the prestige, it's the status. And that's ultimately what we look for is like when we're designing a brand, we have a phrase. It's get paid, get laid, live forever. Okay. So if you can sell money at a discount or help someone make money with an investment that's virtually guaranteed, that's a great business. The get laid is if you're selling status, authority, prestige, elevated appearance. In other words, if you can make someone royalty with all the benefits, with the wave of a magic wand, that's a great business, okay? The third is the live forever is if you can improve someone's quality of life, lifestyle, longevity, energy, mood, you got it. Now, the trifecta is if you've got a product that does all three. So when we're crafting a story, what we look for is how do I craft a get paid, get laid, live forever story so people genuinely are making more, they're more attractive, whether it's to the opposite sex or to business or whatever. And then outside, it somehow contributes to a higher quality of life. And, you know, we use that phrase because it's kind of funny, but, you know, we soften it for whatever market or audience that we need to speak to. And they don't know what's going on. You know, this is embedded inside a fairly complex story.
Are those some of the keys to really make your brand competition proof?
I think competition proof. So I'm going to give you, that's a really good question, Ty. I would say the best way to make yourself competition proof is, first of all, if you use the Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger strategy, it's craft a moat, create a moat, and create something where it's difficult to get inside your space. And that comes from trademarks, copyrights, ownership of intellectual property. That's certainly one way. A second way, though, is just out innovating and outclassing your competition. And that just means you're moving so fast, by the time your competition knocks you off, you're already 2 steps ahead of them and you've got new products. So I think, people give Apple a hard time. They go, well, they don't innovate fast enough. They don't whatever. And I'll be like, you know what? I've been listening to that bull crap for 30 years. Okay. I was one of the first guys to ever start coding on a Macintosh. And I always said, Apple's going to win, even though they've been run by incompetence over time when Jobs left. But what they've done is they've out innovated and they've created a get paid, get laid, live forever brand, meaning, you can make money and be creative and expressive. It is a status symbol to have an Apple product. And it enhances the quality of your life in so many different ways. But they just consistently have a great story. It's a form of self-expression to have a Mac. You're thought of as being more creative with it. And they just simply have been out innovating the world. And the best example of that is they came out with their M1 processors, which basically embedded processors, graphics processing, memory, and storage all on one chip. It was basically the middle finger to Intel once and for all, and a whole bunch of other manufacturers. They control it, and their stuff's super fast. Well, they're a $2 trillion company. They're probably going to be worth 3 or 4 in the next few years. Never bet against them. I'd never bet against Apple. I'd never bet against Disney, and they always say never blank with a mouse. Rhymes with truck and starts with an F. But that's, Disney is Disney. They've got these amazing creative brands. How do you beat them? They got Pixar, they got Marvel, they got their classics. It's just playing a smart game and being great entertainers.
Do that? I mean, how do you create that kind of customer and that kind of brand loyalty like Apple and Disney have done as a small business?
All right. So I'll give you a really good example of a client we're working with right now. This is a smaller circumstance, and they're actually located in Spain. So I met these guys like 15 years ago. They bought some of my products back when I had Traffic Geyser and Instant Customer, and we had a product called Main Street Marketing Machines. The basic idea was we taught someone how to make $5,000 in less than a day. Actually, and technically, it could happen in less than an hour. And you could launch your own digital marketing agency using our software and our systems. Okay. So, and this is back in like 2008 when this thing came out. It was the original Main Street Marketing Machines. That launch produced $9 million in revenue in a week, $3 million live streaming day. Now, why am I telling you this? Because a couple of young guys from Spain bought our product and they started implementing it. And if you fast forward to now, I got this inquiry, I don't know, not long ago, a couple months ago, and they said, hey, this is Alfonso and Christian, and we've been following you for a long time. You really helped us, changed our lives, and we're doing something new, and we want some help. So I find out these guys have built a system that teaches people how to become big ticket closers in Spain. 700 people have gone through their program, and they've done it the hard, scrappy way, just building up. But they want to elevate, right? They want to increase their value and find additional ways to sell more effectively. And the simple, short answer comes down to this. So how do you build this audience? Well, first of all, what you got to do is you got to make something, whether it's information, training, or a one-on-one interaction that delivers a result that improves one of the 3 biggies. In other words, did you help them make money, get paid? Did you help them improve their status, authority, become more attractive to the world, get laid, or lifestyle, live forever? And you interview and gather the shortest story possible of someone's transformation. So the key to this, and the number one word, is what's the transformation? And you've got to grab that with the fewest number of words. If you can do it in a minute, you'll crush it. So the bottom line is you capture 1 story, 2 stories, 3 stories. Now, in the case of Alfonso and Christian, we've got 6 transformations. People who started, they had crappy jobs, worked for jerks, had no time, they were like hated their jobs, or they're doing something that they're overqualified for, all the things that people hate about their lives and working, who invested in their course, went through a transformation, are making money, they're living life on their terms, they're doing it full-time or part-time, et cetera, et cetera. And the most important thing of all is look at my family, more family time. Because at the end of the day, what are you doing all this for anyway? It all comes down to freedom. I would ultimately say, if you want to understand someone's drive, find the freedom story. That's where the transformation exists. And if you stack that up and you show a before, during, after experience of using a product, that's how you get there. So everything that we do has to do with really figuring out what's the story that your idealized audience needs to hear. So they raise their hand and say, I've been looking for someone just like you, Ty Crandall. How do we start working together? I've studied everything you have, but that one story about Bill completely changed my life, and he's me. I want that too. And that's it.
I love it. How about best-selling books? What do you've got like what, 13? I mean, how are you using, and you gave us in a previous example, how are you using these best-selling books to be able to kind of establish all this, to make this happen?
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what my philosophy always has been, which is you don't make money selling books. You use books to share a story and a transformation, so you attract a right fit audience to raise their hand and say, I've been looking for someone just like you, Ty Crandall. So every book I've ever written was designed basically to be a sales presentation to show how to do something. So one of my books, it's technically obsolete right now because the products and services I was selling in it, I don't sell any longer. I sold that business, but the concept behind Money Phone is still really good. And basically what I taught is how to create an immediate connection, get someone's attention, and make them want to buy from you in a couple of minutes. And I call it the Money Phone strategy. And I also say that inside your phone are 20 to 1,000 people who will say yes to you right now if you present a right fit offer and know how to get their attention and create engagement. So that's the premise behind the book. And I wrote the book at the time to sell a product we had. It was a $2,000 information product, which led to a $5,000 live event, which led to a $25,000 mastermind. And so every book I've ever written, its sole purpose was to generate a minimum of $1 million in 100 days. And so what I'm going to say used to be considered total blasphemy. Now it's generally accepted by all but the snobby prudes at like New York Times who decide which books are going to be New York Times bestsellers. Okay. It has nothing to do with sales. It has to do with getting past a bunch of snobby nerds who are locked up in a room. A book, someone's first book should do one thing, which is tell your story in the most effective way that's cost effective, because you can get books printed for a couple bucks each, put them in the hands of the right fit person, tell them a story starring them as the hero in a movie that leads to the promised land that they really want or wish for. Okay. What is that freedom? What is the get paid, get laid, live forever? And show them how to do it. And then along the way, let them know that there's a shortcut to getting to the promised land. It's by hiring a guide or investing in a product or service named you. And so we basically use the classic hero's journey from Joseph Campbell to get there, which is, someone's lost. They need to slay the dragon. They need to rescue the princess. They try, they fail. They try, they fail. They meet the mentor, the wizard who gives them magical powers. They go off. They might try and fail. And finally they succeed. They slay the dragon, rescue the princess, and live happily ever after. but anything can be broken into that basic structural format. And that again is the underlying frequency or pattern underneath the basic how-tos and language that you use. Now, again, I'm not talking about New York Times bestsellers that are made for something. I'm talking about something to build an audience, engage them, get them to raise their hand and say, you're my expert, you're my category one, and there's no one else but you to get me to the promised land.
My powerful talk today. Where can everybody go that's listening and watching to be able to learn more about what you can do to help them and just a little bit more about what we talked about today?
Right on. Well, you can head on over to my website, which is MikeKoenigs.com. That's MikeKoenigs. The shortcut also, you can use paidforlife.com. That's easier to remember. And there I've got tools you can download, resources. I've also got my 2 podcasts, Capability Amplifier and The Big Leap, which are all about thinking like this. It's just changing the way you think. Because you think, when you really think about it, you can have anything that you want or desire by crafting an amazing story. And if you get the right story at the right time in front of the right audience, it can create momentum, riches, opportunity, and the lifestyle and the freedom you've always wanted. I mean, that's what we all share. We all have in common, is we have a similar dream. And that's our core drivers, human beings. And I truly, truly believe it. I've seen it over and over and over again. And, if you just pay attention to what motivates you and what makes you want what you want. I over answered your question again, but those are the places to go. And Ty, you're really good at this. I'm really glad we did this.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I really appreciate you coming on. So everybody, make sure that you head over to MikeKoenigs.com. That's MikeKoenigs.com. It's spelled Koenigs.com. A lot of stuff there. I mean, we just scratched the surface. Mike, it could dive in so much deeper to so many topics. He's got a phenomenal podcast there. He's got his blog there, an abundance of other resources that can help you really create a competition-proof empire, to really be able to create this category of one brand that we talked about today. So if you want to dive in deeper and learn more, which you should, okay, so you can actually separate yourself from your competition and be the premium and being able to offer a premium price for premium services and anything, any kind of niche that you're in now, you can micro niche down, as Mike has talked about today, and earn big dollars by basically eliminating any kind of competition. And you can learn more of how to do all of it at MikeKoenigs.com. That's MikeKoenigs.com. That's Koenigs.com. Make sure you head over there right now to check everything out. You will not be disappointed that you did. Thank you very much. Have a great day.